Hey everyone, my name's Brittany and this is a presentation about the myofascial lines. So today I'm going to be using the information from the textbook Anatomy Trains by Thomas Myers, as well as Lorraine Glass, her presentation. And I've also done a little bit of research outside of the information that we got from our text and from our presentations, and I'll be adding those links to the bottom. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, the resources that I did find are really good and reputable. So let's get diving right into it. So we're going to start with the superficial back line. So here's a picture of it here, and I'll just keep it up there while I explain. So the superficial back line is also known as the SBL. It connects and protects the whole posterior surface of the body from the bottom of the foot to the top of the head in two pieces, as you can see here. So when standing upright in anatomical position, the SBL functions as a continuous line of integrated myofascial. So what does the back line do? It supports the body in full upright extension. It prevents the tendency to curl over into flexion. So instead of us always being like this, we can be nice and upright. The slow twitch fibers, which are the endurance fibers, are required to help with all-day postural function. So what I like to remember about that is think slow twitch for spine. I know that it's not the best, but you can think of slow twitch spine because all day our spine is working to keep us uplifted. So what kind of movement does this good old superficial back line do? So it creates extension and hyperextension. However, it does have the exception of flexion from the knee on down. The SBL flexes the toes. And without the SBL muscles, a baby's head would not be able to lift or eventually come into a standing position. So if you think about when a baby is really young and just brought home, if you have that opportunity to hold a brand new baby, you always have to support their head because they've been in the womb in that complete flexion the whole time. So it's really cool that this superficial back line allows that baby's head to lift and come into that standing position. And then, so I'm going to be showing you some stretches. So remember, all of this information that I did read was from our text, and a lot of it was from Thomas Myers. So I do not take credit for all of those great anatomical wording. So let's get into some stretches that I'm going to show you that can help stretch out the superficial back line. So the first one, you can see me here, your knees are nice and soft, and you're just reaching over. So creating that nice long spine, and you can just wrap those hands around, looking down, and you can just sway back and forth. So this is a really common yoga pose. You're really stretching out from the heel all the way to the top of the head. And you can just slowly and gently get a little bit more flexible, bringing that chest down towards the thighs. Only holding that stretch for 20 to 30 seconds. So remember, you're going to the stretch of tension, but not pain. All right, so second line is the superficial front line. So here is the text here to show you what it looks like. Sorry, I don't have a demo with some tape like most of you have probably done. And so let me explain the superficial front line. So it's also known as the SFL, and it functions to balance the SBL. So the two work together. So front and back work together. So the SFL provides support from the top of the head to lift those parts of the skeleton which extend forward to the gravity line, such as the pubis, ribcage, and face. The myofascial of the SFL maintains the postural extension of the knees. The muscles of the SFL defend the front surfaces of the human body and protect the viscera of the ventral cavity, so they keep us nice and safe. So where is it? It connects the entire anterior surface of the body from the top of the feet to the side of the skull in two pieces. So you can think toes to pelvis and then pelvis to head. So in standing, just like this little skeleton man, the SFL functions as one continuous line of integrated myofascial. So what exactly does it do movement-wise? It balances the SBL, so the superficial back line. It creates flexion of the trunk and hips and extension of the knee. It also creates dorsiflexion of the foot. Now, remember the SBL, so the superficial back line was those slow twitch fibers. Well, now the front is actually mostly the fast twitch fibers. So it's a little bit different. The SFL also extends the toes, whereas to the opposite, the SBL was the one that flexed the toes. So extension for the front. So 2 creative stretches that I came up with here, well, not myself, but I found them in the text and through research, is a crescent lunge. If you're familiar with yoga, I will show you that, along with a quadricep stretch, which I adapted from a physiotherapist named Daniel, which I'll give you the YouTube link. So for that crescent lunge stretch here, you would cue your client to step your right foot forward, left foot back. Now you want your hips and shoulders square like headlights on a car. You're gonna reach your fingertips up towards the ceiling and then create a nice back bend. So making sure that your head's not just dropping. You want to keep your neck nice and neutral, abdominals pulled in. You're really pushing down into that front foot and extending up. So that's gonna create that nice long stretch through the fingertips all the way down. You'll feel it right away. The second stretch here that I found for the superficial front line is same right foot. And then you're going to pull this left heel in towards your seat. So this might be a stretch in itself for somebody. Daniel also recommended to just put that toe up against the wall and then you'll create a little bit more support. But if you have somebody that's a little bit more flexible, you can grab around with 1 or 2 hands, hips and shoulders square, keeping your heart up. And then you also have the option to just gently tuck the right ear to the right shoulder. So it will look like the left ear to the left shoulder on your rear end. And that's going to create that nice stretch all the way. Okay, so moving into the third line is the lateral line. So here's the text here so you can see exactly what it looks like. Oops. There you go. So as I explained, the lateral line starts from the medial lateral midpoint of the foot and it wraps around the outside of the ankle and moves up the lateral aspect of the leg and thigh, passing along the trunk in a cross shoelace pattern under the shoulder to the skull in the region of the ear. So right here along that side rib area, that's that nice little shoelace pattern. So the movement that happens in the lateral line is laterally bending the body with lateral flexion of the trunk and abduction at the hip and eversion of the foot. So this lateral line also provides a halt or break with our lateral and rotational movements in our trunk so that we don't overextend. So you can think about the lateral line when we try to reach something that's on the floor, we're not just gonna flop into half. That line keeps us nice and protected so that we just don't bend completely over. Common postural composition patterns most seen with the naked eye include ankle pronation and supination, as well as ankle dorsiflexion, limitation, varus or valgus, and more. So lots of good stuff about that lateral line. So I'm going to show you 2 stretches that I found for the lateral line. The first one I actually found online, and the second one I know from bar class because I teach bar as my job. So let's get into the first one here. You're just going to cue your client to bring their left ankle, or to you it's your right, behind, and you're going to reach that same arm that's the foot behind, up and over. So you can create that nice long stretch. And then to get a little bit more, you just find a little bit of flexion through that front. And that's going to create that nice deep stretch through that line all the way down. Of course, you can bring both arms up if you want to, but you feel it just like this, making sure you hold for about 20 to 30 seconds, and then repeating on the other side, creating that nice long stretch. The second one, if I had a ballet bar here, I'll use the treadmill. So you're just going to cue your client to bring their foot up onto the bar or the countertop. And then you just hinge slightly forward. And you're actually going to take the opposite hand that the leg is up on the bar and cross it over top of that ankle. And then you can just slightly open here, or you can reach up and over. And this creates that stretch, or that release, through the IT band. So remember, we can't stretch the IT band, but we can give it that nice release. So that is the lateral. All right, so going into the spiral line. Here's the diagram here of my little skeleton man. So the spiral line, as Lorraine Glass explains, is the spiral line loops around the body in a helix, joining one side of the skull across the back to the opposite shoulder, and then across the front to the same hip, knee, and foot arch, running up the back of the body to rejoin the fascia on the skull. The spiral line maintains balance across all the planes and helps determine knee tracking in walking. One of the resources that I found, Bergeron, 2013, he says the body spiral line is genetically designed to create and mediate spirals and rotations in the body, and an eccentric and isometric contraction to steady the trunk and leg to keep it from folding into rotational. You're going to step our right foot forward. You're going to step your left leg back, and then reaching the arm that is the leg back down to the floor. You're going to reach that opposite arm up, keeping your balance, looking up towards that hand. Of course, you can progress this for people by maybe bringing a block, or sort of regress this for people by bringing a block underneath their hands so they have a little bit more support. So, the functional lines extend the arm lines across the surface of the trunk to the contralateral pelvis and leg. One line runs across the front of the body and the other across the back, so when the right and left lines cross each other, they create an X across the torso. Just like this little guy here, you can see that X. Rarely employed in maintaining posture, but they do play a role in athletic activity when one limb is stabilized, counterbalanced, or powered by its contralateral component. So a few of the examples that they gave in the text was somebody that was throwing a baseball or a javelin. So what helped me remember was my husband's a lacrosse player. So they're holding that stick, and when they have to power that ball into the goalie's net, usually, if they're right hand dominant, the left foot steps forward, the right arm's back, and as they jump into that front left foot, that's when they swing that dominant right arm over, which is going to get the ball in. I'm going to just talk about definitions and descriptions of the front and back functional lines. Comes directly from a reference that I found called Healing Hearts. And they just talk about how some of the activities are used in yoga poses with these lines. So the front functional line begins with the pectoralis major and its connection to the lower ribs, where it has myofascial continuity with the rectus abdominis to the pubic bone and down the contralateral adductor longus. This forms a functional line of mechanical connection during movement activities. The back functional line begins with the latissimus dorsi muscle and connects into the lumbosacral fascia and crosses over to the gluteus maximus on the contralateral side. The line continues into the iliotibial band and vastus lateralis muscle on the lateral thigh. So, let's talk about some of the yoga applications of this little guy. So I'm just going to pull up what they said here. So the front functional line is considered active mainly in asymmetrical contraction of the mover muscles of the front of the body, especially in sport-related activities like tennis, pitching a baseball, or like the lacrosse thing that I mentioned. In yoga, we use the functional line symmetrically in a crisscross fashion in Navasana. So that's a boat pose. And a boat pose is when you have your legs up and you're reaching your arms up and you're holding that nice stability. And then the back functional line is considered active mainly in asymmetrical contraction of the mover muscles of the back of the body, especially in sport-related activities like the motion of making a layup in basketball. So in yoga, the pose that activates the back functional line is, I can't pronounce the yoga name, but it's warrior pose number 1. So that's my presentation. Again, I did not make up these words. Those definitions were not mine. I'd like to reiterate that they were from Thomas Myers Anatomy Trains, and also from Lorraine Glass, her presentations there, as well as the extra references that I found. So I'll be attaching those references at the bottom. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this helped you. YouTube has great resources online about these backlines that make it a little bit more connecting to your brain. So I hope you liked it. Have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.